Our children must survive our attempts to protect them.
Tonight, children who died in care and the staggering numbers in 2 provinces.
So I discover it for the First Peoples of the Americas, and I claim it for the First Peoples of the Americas.
We meet the Cree John A. Macdonald, who once claimed England on behalf of First Nations.
We shared a blessing in our language at the dinner table, and it brought my parents, myself, my sisters to tears because we couldn't understand what he was saying.
And the Haisla Nation's efforts to revitalize their language. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. 11 Indigenous children have died since March in Ontario. All had some sort of involvement with the child welfare system. An APTN investigation shows that Indigenous children make up 1/3 of all deaths connected to the state. That's 172 Indigenous children and youth since 2013. Manitoba also collects similar data with its own child protection services, and as Brittany Hobson shows us, it's a similar grim tale.
This February marked the 10-year anniversary of Cassandra Wood's death. Helena Wood wanted to commemorate the day in a special way. For the first time since Cassandra's passing, Wood took her other children back home to St. Teresa Point First Nation for a feast and to visit the site where Cassandra was found.
It was closure for us, and we finally closed it, right, and just for us and to talk about her and went to go see the site.
Cassandra died by suicide at the age of 15. The teen witnessed years of domestic violence in the home and sought support along the way, but Wood says this never came.
Back then, they didn't have that kind of resources, They didn't know what to do.
Cassandra is not alone. She is one of many children and youth who have died in the province from 2009 to 2019. According to statistics from the Manitoba Advocate for Children and Youth, 1,605 youth have died in Manitoba in the last decade. Of those, 590 are what the Advocate calls reviewable deaths, meaning the person had some contact with the child welfare system within the past year of their life. In total, 131 were classified as in government care at the time of their death. Death by suicide continues to be the leading cause of death for youth in Manitoba. Wood says Cassandra never saw a therapist, despite telling others about what was going on at home.
There's always a waiting list for a doctor, waiting list for a therapist, and we need more therapists out there.
Manitoba Advocate Daphne Penrose has repeatedly called for easier access to mental health resources, especially in First Nations.
So how do we help kids with mental health issues, or help them regulate some of the issues that they're having with supports that are close to their home, them and their families, and to be able to have communities decide about what resources they need so that they can provide meaningful help to their kids.
In Manitoba, there are 10 to 11,000 kids in care in any given year. 90% are Indigenous. Penrose's office does not keep track of how many of the deaths are Indigenous children or youth. But last year, Indigenous people accounted for at least 85% of the reviewable deaths. Of those, just under half were part of the authority, consisting of several Southern First Nations.
The foundational factors are poverty. That's it's clear cut. The compounded issues are the addictions that we're seeing now, the methamphetamines, that sort of drugs creeping into our communities, the inability of our peoples to find a way out of that addiction.
Southern Chiefs Organization Grand Chief Jerry Daniels says the child welfare system alone cannot address years of systemic racism that led to the high number of Indigenous youth in care.
It's going to take collaboration among institutions of government. It can't be just child welfare. It has to be the health system. It has to be education. It has to be recreation. Every child from the moment they're born should have a support system in place that evolves and is dynamic and changes, but is all about supporting the child.
In Ontario, the number of youth who have died while receiving care is typically and quietly posted on the coroner's website every year. However, the province just recently provided APTN data for the last 2 years after refusing for months. From 2013 to today, 172 children died with society involvement in the province. Since the pandemic hit in March, 11 Indigenous kids connected to the child welfare system died. Former Ontario Children's Advocate Irwin Ellman said the number is unacceptable.
And these are children who the state has intervened to protect them. So at minimum, the state needs to say, the government needs to say, something is not right. Something is not working. We must do better. Our children must survive our attempts to protect them. How about that as an outcome?
The NDP in Ontario have called for an emergency investigation into the deaths there. In Manitoba, the Advocate's Office says the number of deaths in the first quarter of 2020 is consistent with the number of deaths during the same period last year. There have also been demands to defund the child welfare system, similar to calls to defund police across the country. Penrose believes there needs to be a shift in traditional child welfare practices.
And so I think it has to do with changing how services are delivered, making sure that the people who are delivering them understand how to help families, how to work with families as the expert.
Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Well, a plan to shift or redesign the child welfare system was released in Ontario today. But some child advocates are questioning its lack of detail, especially because no funding to implement the changes was announced. Jill Dunlop is Associate Minister of Children and Women's Issues. She announced that child welfare in the province would move from protection to prevention by shifting investments to a community-based approach while improving residential settings and focusing on kinship agreements and foster care. But the lack of funding concerns one child advocate.
This means that the responsibility that's going to be downloaded onto communities leaves communities to their own devices to figure out how to do this. There's no leadership there. For me, it tells me, as I always suspected, that this project was not a...
Cindy Blackstock also raised concerns about funding while remaining cautiously optimistic about today's child welfare announcement. The longtime advocate sees support for culturally based services and the inclusion of in-care youth voices in the plan.
The high principles are really encouraging to see an emphasis on prevention, although it really will be important to know how they're going to tackle the things that drive the overrepresentation of First Nations children in Ontario, which is primarily poverty, poor housing, mental health trauma, and addictions. And so when we talk about prevention, that's really where we need to target.
In other news, the Chief Executive Officer of Alberta's Fort McKay Métis Group, Dwayne Roth, has been charged with 2 counts of sexual assault. The charges stem from an alleged assault in 2017. In a statement, Roth says he is innocent. He has temporarily stepped aside as CEO of the Fort McKay Métis Group. Roth is scheduled to appear in a Lac La Biche court on August 10th. A new coin has been unveiled to honor a celebrated artist. Details after the break. Here's a look at Thursday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. 15 and showers for St. John's, 31 with rain for Halifax. Sunny and 13 in Nain, 19 with showers for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. 25 in rain in Montreal, 22 with showers for Saguenay. 28 and rain for Toronto, 25 in rain in Ottawa. A sunny day and 26 for Thunder Bay, 23 with rain for Sudbury. 23 with rain for Churchill, showers, and 30 in Norway House and Thompson. 30 with sunny skies for Winnipeg and Gimli, rain, and 30 in Dauphin. 33 is the high for Regina and Estevan, 32 in Swift Current, 20 with showers in Uranium City and Stony Rapids. Welcome back. The Haisla Nation in northern BC is looking to preserve and revitalize their language. It's going to run a 2-week workshop documenting fluent elders with the support of the First Nations Education Foundation. Lee Wilson has more.
3 years ago, Teresa Windsor's son came home and shared what he learned in school. It was an eye-opener for her family, sparking a journey for revitalization of a language and culture.
He shared a blessing in our language at the dinner table, and it brought my parents, myself, my sisters to tears because we couldn't understand what he was saying. And so that really sparked something deep within me to take a look at why we weren't speaking or understanding the language.
She held a meeting in her community around language and brought the information to the Haisla Nation Council, who had been planning on a cultural and language revitalization. The last 3 years, Windsor worked with a growing cultural team. They realized that the knowledge holders are all over the age of 60.
At the time was at 101, and now I believe we're at 80. We're still trying to figure out and define fluency, so those numbers might change a little, but from the people that we know that can speak fluently, that number is down to about 82.
The team realized this race against time. They met with Scott Geary, Executive Director of First Nations Education Foundation, who collaborates with First Nations to develop revitalization programs with at-risk dialects. Last week, they prepared to work in the nation with safety measures in place due to the pandemic.
Through technology and venue space and really good partners that way, we've been able to, I think, overcome those challenges and what looks like being able to pull off a good, solid workshop.
Geary says the work is possible thanks to a partnership with NIB Trust, who's funding 70% of the project. Industries Ledcor and TC Energy agreed to contribute as well as Rio Tinto, who donated $50,000.
Started working with the Haisla and the Cultural Committee and started working to develop the partnership. It's taken a little while, but we're very proud that it's come to a conclusion now, and we've reached that partnership and able to donate the money to help preserve the language.
The Language Haisla Gala is formed of dialects of 2 communities, the Kitlope and the Haisla, who amalgamated in 1948. Larry Hayashi is a linguist who will be doing a rapid word collection for what he says is the first time in British Columbia.
We're usually shooting for gathering 10 to 17,000 words in that amount of time. Bring the community together. It's a lot of people working off each other's synergy as they remember the words.
The 2-week word collection will add to the Haisla dictionary, help build an app for mobile devices. When the language is documented, the goal is to transform it to be taught for the next generation, preserving a culture thanks to the support of a community.
The work with First Nations Education Foundation is going to complement the framework that's being developed to implement curriculum in the school district and all across the board with Haisla Nation.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Haisla Nation.
Bill Reid is arguably the most celebrated creator of Northwest Coast art, and now one of his designs has been immortalized on the toonie. Its release coincides with the 100th anniversary of Reid's birth, and to tell us more is Alison Crawford, a spokesperson for the Royal Canadian Mint. Alison, thanks for joining us. So what are the new coins and when will they be in the pockets of Canadians?
Okay, well, as you know, the Mint has a pretty special role when it comes to commemorating Canada's culture, history, and values. And on the 100th anniversary of the birth of Bill Reid, this is a great opportunity for us to share his story with Canadians and the world. So we are producing 3 million toonies, and they're special toonies, they're commemorative toonies. So we have 2 million of these beautiful colored $2 coins entering circulation this week, and we also have 1 million uncolored just metal coins that are entering circulation this week, and they feature a design from a 1990 painting by Bill Reid called Joaget, which is probably my mispronunciation of the Haida word for grizzly bear, and it was done in 1990 and based on a ceremonial drum design that was created by the Sam family on Haida Gwaii back at the turn of the previous century. So we have this design on the front of our coin, and with its circular design, you know, it's kind of ideal for a coin, and it has very strong lines that are really great for engraving. So we knew this would make a wonderful coin for us to feature on our coin.
Alison, the timing coincides with the 100th anniversary of Reid's birth, but why else did the Mint choose to honor Reid this way?
I mean, like as I said, we really commemorate our cultures, right? And so whether it's Indigenous culture or artistic cultures, we take a look at everything. And for this design by Bill Reid, it just, I don't know, it's a great example of that Northwest Coast art that he sort of brought his own contemporary Indigenous art to the world, and he really brought the attention to that specific kind of art to the world. And so it's a real beautiful part of our history, and on the 100th anniversary of his birth, it really gives us that opportunity and that little hook to do it now.
Canadians may have seen his work but still not know his name. Where have they seen his public art, and how does that fit into the legacy here?
Well, on the old $20 bill, there was a piece of Bill Reid's art. Also at the Vancouver airport, when you're going to pick up your bags, there's a gorgeous statue. And of course, the Museum of Civilization in Gatineau, Quebec, has a hallway filled with his gorgeous art. And you know, you can't also forget the Bill Reid Gallery of Northwest Coast Art in Vancouver as well, which has not just Bill Reid, many of Bill Reid's pieces of art, but also the whole, many other artists who also have been sculpting, making jewelry, making clothing and painting, all sorts of different kinds of media that show and feature that contemporary kind of Northwest Coast art.
Alison, do you know, does the Mint have plans to honor any other Indigenous artists?
At this point, we don't, but I can tell you that on our commemorative circulation coins, you know, those kind of unusual coins that come out once a year, we have had 7 Indigenous artists on our coins in the past. So you might remember back in 2017 for the Canada 150th, we had a reinterpretation of the nickel. So the nickel usually has a beaver on it, of course, and a Mi'kmaq artist, Gerald Glode, made that reimagined beaver coin in 2017. And of course, in 2013, there was the 100th anniversary of the Arctic expedition, and Tim Pitsulek from Nunavut, we had his piece of art on that coin as well in 2013. So we do have an entire list, and you can find out more information on mint.ca.
Alison, we'll have to leave it there. Appreciate you speaking with us about this coin.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Pretty nice. Hope to end up with one of those in my pocket. Still to come, we'll catch up with the Cree John A. Macdonald, who once claimed the United Kingdom for First Nations. Stick around. Here's a look at the rest of your Thursday weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. 22 with showers in Fort Chip, 24 under sunny skies in Fort McMurray, 34 with the sun out in Medicine Hat, 30 in Lethbridge. Rain, and 26 for Vancouver, 38 in Kamloops, 28 and sunny for Fort Nelson, Smithers, and Prince George, 27 for Old Crow and Beaver Creek, 26 in Whitehorse, 22 with showers in Yellowknife, 26 and rain for Wrigley, 10 in Sax Harbor, 27 for Inuvik, 22 in Baker Lake and Chesterfield, 9 with rain for Resolute and Joe Haven. Welcome back. 20 years ago, a Saskatchewan man who was studying in England announced he had discovered and was claiming the UK, all because of his name. Priscilla Wolfe has his story.
John A. Macdonald is a member of Mistwasis Nihilwak, and he grew up on the West Flat of Prince Albert. He was named after his father.
My father was John Macdonald. Technically, I guess I'd be John Macdonald Jr., but he was a John B. Macdonald, so I don't know where the A came from. He named me after the first thing he found in his pocket, which was a $10 bill. So I always said I was lucky he didn't have a 20, otherwise I'd be named Elizabeth.
Macdonald says since he shares the same name as the man on the $10 bill and the man who has several statues of his likeness across Canada, he gets a lot of social media requests and tags.
What happens is when, with the whole people wanting to bring the statues down, they will type in, bring down John A. Macdonald. But instead of spelling it the way he spells it, or he spelled it, they spell it just like me, and I end up getting tagged in their messages. So my social media inbox is usually loaded with so-and-so tagged doing this, so-and-so tagged doing this, and they're always messages or posts about bringing the statues down.
But 20 years ago, Macdonald did something that got his own media attention.
When I was 19, I was given a scholarship to attend the University of Cambridge in England on a history scholarship.
Macdonald decided while in England to do as the explorers did, and he claimed England on behalf of the First Peoples of the Americas.
So I got a beaded buckskin jacket. I had a T-shirt with an image of Big Bear on it, and I walked into this, carrying the flag, walked into this crowded park in Cambridge, and people started kind of gathering around because, it was kind of an odd thing to have this guy walk out carrying a flag. And I said to the crowd, "This is the first time I've ever been here. I'm a stranger from a strange land. I see a people with their own civilization, their own culture, their own government, their own way of praying, their own way of life, an established civilization, but in the tradition of Cartier, of Columbus, of Cortez, of Champlain, and all these explorers. In that tradition, this didn't exist till I got here. So I discover it for the First Peoples of the Americas, and I claim it for the First Peoples of the Americas." And stuck the flag in the ground and got a smattering of tepid applause.
Now, 20 years later, with statues of the old John A. Macdonald being brought down, maybe it's time for the new John A. to claim his role in history. Priscilla Wolfe, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Pretty cool story. Well, now to the world of hockey. And with Stanley Cup qualifying matches just around the corner, the Chicago Blackhawks announced Native American headdresses will be prohibited from fans attending home games. In a statement, team officials said the decision was based on respect for sacred Indigenous symbols. The Blackhawks are currently in the bubble city of Edmonton, so the ban will apply next year when they return to the United Center. The NHL is targeting a December start, but it's unclear if fans will be allowed to return. Well, last night, the Edmonton Oilers took on the Calgary Flames. It was the first NHL action for both teams in roughly 4 months. And Edmonton's Ethan Bear from Saskatchewan's Ochapowace Nation paid homage to his heritage. Bear wore a jersey that featured his name in Cree syllabics, a first for both the team and the league. The 23-year-old defenseman will be a key piece of the Oilers' blue line. Bear and his teammates take on the Chicago Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup qualifiers on Saturday. He spoke after the game about how it felt to wear the jersey.
Yeah, it's very honorable. It's honorable to players that played before me, and then to the young Indigenous kids who want to play in NHL. And it's very honorable for me, and I wore it with pride tonight, and it was very awesome.
Pretty groundbreaking move there. Really excited for the season to resume. That is your APTN National News for this Wednesday. For much more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and never miss a story by downloading the APTN News app. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow.